Hi everyone, I hope you all are doing well. In my today's video session, I'm going to explain the Microsoft Azure Bot service. Okay, so before this Azure Bot service, Microsoft has introduced the bot registration channel based services, but now bot channel registration services have been deprecated. It's a mandate to upgrade to Azure Bot services. There are plenty of advantages we have over using Azure bot services, and this upgrade takes more value to our product if we do that. So, without wasting much time, let me start with that. Okay. Now, how can we create a Azure bot service? Log into Microsoft Azure portal, click on a create resource plus button, basically, and here just type bot and the automatic suggestion will show Azure bot option for us. Select it. So the creator resource page for Azure bot will look something like this. Okay. So if you see the overview, develop enterprise grade conversational AI experiences while maintaining control of your data, edit your bot in bot framework composer or SDK. Host your bot in any environment and enable customers from a variety of channels such as your app or website, data line speech, Microsoft Teams, and more. I hope you people understood the significance of this bot service. Okay, it is not only dedicated to a web API based channel, basically, or a direct line channel, but you can make use of this bot to variety of purposes. Okay, you can make use of Microsoft Teams channel, you can make use of Skype channel, even though it is deprecated nowadays. You can use Alexa. There are number of channels provided for these bots. Okay, it's up to us what we want to choose. Okay, so that's the description of Azure Bot, the newly introduced Azure Bot service. Okay, so let's move on. Now, in the basics section, the basics tab, basically. So what is the bot handle name? So provide a meaningful bot handle name which will tell you, okay, what is the name of this bot, or you can say, for example, in my example here, CI means Central India. Just for demonstration purpose, I have used this name, Central India. MBS is my project name. Okay. ABS stands for Azure Bot Service, and what is the instance number? 01. So 01 denotes the instance number. This is how I would locate my bot resource when I have a lot of environments. Okay. Subscription, select the appropriate subscription where you would like to create it and select the resource group. As I'm keep on explaining that a resource group in Azure most of the time represents your environment or your application environment. Okay. So select the appropriate resource group and yep, that's that. Go to the pricing section. Okay, let me show you what are the two categories available for the pricing here. Yeah, when I go to the pricing section, okay, just scroll down through this page, you should get that pricing section over here. Click on change plan. Okay, F0 is for free, S1 is for standard. Go with S1. I think that's what I have selected. Okay, so that is with respect to selecting the pricing tiers. Now, most important thing that I'm going to explain is the Microsoft App ID. Okay, so an Azure Bot service is a kind of app registration, because using this Microsoft App ID only we can authenticate to our bot, the app ID and app secret, which is generated after creation of this Azure Bot service. Okay, a Microsoft App ID is required to create an Azure Bot resource. If your bot app doesn't need to access resources outside of its home tenant, and if your bot app will be hosted on an Azure resource that supports managed entities, Then choose option user assigned managed identity, so that Azure takes care of managing the app credentials for you. Otherwise, depending on whether your bot will be accessing resources only in its home tenant or not, choose either single tenant or multi-tenant options respectively. Okay. So in order to create a Microsoft Azure bot service, we have to select the type of app. Okay. A user assigned managed identity is something, if we go with this approach, it will allow us for outside the users outside my organization to access this Azure bot. Now, users outside my organization, in the sense, not only the organization users, but individual Microsoft personal account holders also can access my bot. So that kind of flexibility will be given with the user assigned managed identity. Multi-tenancy, this will come into picture when it's involved with the B2B, business to business. Okay. Now you have created a bot. The bot needs to be used by your organization, but also it can be used by some other organization users. Then make it multi-tenant. Okay. In that case, the bot will be accessible to or across the organizations. I can say. Single tenant, very specific. You want your bot to work in your organization only, nobody else can access it. So in that case, select single tenant. Now, what is the next field? A user assigned managed identity can be automatically created below, or you can manually create your own. Then return to input your new app ID, tenant ID, and MSI resource ID in the open field. So here simply select create new Microsoft app ID, because we are not going to use existing app registrations, because most of the time we create a new resource basically. So just select this create new Microsoft app ID and click on review plus create. Okay. And yes, with this field I forgot to mention, I'm going with the single tenant. Okay, because I want my bot to be used within my organization, and I don't want it to be used outside my organization. But if there is a requirement that it needs to be used across organizations, go with the multi-tenant. And as far as I know, most of the business bots created nowadays are created with a type of app being multi-tenant. Okay, it depends on the requirement. My requirement is to keep my bot inside my organization. Okay, that's great. So let's move on. A tags section or tags tab, where you can add some tags like who is the asset owner. I have given asset owner as myself, Manoj Kumar B, maybe my department ID. It's a key value pair basically. You can give a key name and its value. Okay, just for the reference purposes, and also it will help you to search these resources by tags. Though it's optional, but it would be good if you enter some value. Okay. Well, that said, now move on to the next tab, that is review plus create. Now it will run some validation. Now the Azure will run some validation based on the values you have entered. Now bot handle, yes, I had given this bot handle. Subscription, yes, I have selected a valid subscription. Pricing tier, I have kept it standard. Type of app, I want single tenant. And creation type, I want a new app ID. Basically, a new Azure bot service needs to be created. So my validation has been passed. So when I click on create, it will start a deployment. Always remember, whenever you create a resource on Azure, it's basically a deployment. Okay, because you are creating an infrastructure on Azure. It's an infrastructure as a service basically. Okay, so what it does is basically it will create or I can say software as a service also. Both will applicable here. So what it does is it basically creates a service or infrastructure for you, and it deploys for you. Okay, once this creation is successful, you will get an pop-up on the top right corner of your screen that the deployment is successful, and also you will get one successful page. So in the successfully creation page, you will be provided with one button also. Go to the resource. If you click on that button, you will come to the Azure bot service that we had created. Okay. So there are some most important configurations you have to do here basically. So most important thing is messaging endpoint, because you have just created a Azure bot service. Okay. But you should have an application which actually hosts this bot. So which is that application? That is basically a web application, right? It is a web application or a spa application, single page application. Now In order to host that single page application or web application, what app service you are making use of, mention that app service name here. For example, https colon slash slash you can say portal hyphen mbs.com slash azurewebsites.net slash api slash messages, or simply give the host name itself. That will also work out. So without this endpoint, the bot will not work, or basically the communication won't happen between your web application and your Azure bot service that you have created. Most important, the configuration. Yeah. So then comes bot type, whatever I had selected, it's single tenant. Now, the most important piece of information is the Microsoft App ID. You need to copy this and put into your application configuration. Now, configuration can be your app settings .json file, or it may be your key vault. There are a lot of sources for your application configuration, but as it's a Microsoft App ID, it is not a kind of secret. You can put it into app settings.json file. Okay, with the name Microsoft App ID without spaces. App tenant ID is basically your organization's tenant ID, and application insights instrumentation key. So for your bot service, the Azure will automatically create the application insights resource also and gives you the key. Using this key, you can log any kind of information or errors which are associated with your bot's functionality. Okay, you can make use of that also. So that's it from the configuration section. Okay, most important thing I forgot to mention, the Microsoft app secret or the Azure bot secret. You won't get the Azure bot secret in this page, because when it creates a Azure bot service or a app registration, what Azure does is basically it will put the application secrets into a key vault. Okay, so in your resource group, in your Azure resource group, if you have a key vault, then whenever this creation is successful, the key will be put into that key vault basically. Okay, so how will you identify what is that, how to identify which key actually key value pair contains the password for this Azure bot service? Simply copy the Microsoft App ID over here and simply search in your key vault, and you should find a match there. Click on it, copy the secret, and yes, make use of that. Okay, this is how the configuration basically works in order to save the any kind of Azure resources secrets. Okay, so this is how you will get the Microsoft app secret or app password, I can say. Okay, so that is from the configuration part. Move on. Move on. Okay, and here comes the most important thing, channels basically. Now we are done with configuration. Now click on channels in your left navigation pane. Okay, there will be lot of options below, available options. Can you see here? There are a lot of options: Alexa, Microsoft Teams, Skype, and there are more than 20-25 channels are available. Okay, now when to use what? Okay, if you want your bot to work with Alexa, select the Alexa channel. If you want your bot to work with Microsoft Teams, then select Microsoft Teams channel. Okay, and if you are creating a bot which is very specific to your application's domain, okay, so it is very specific, it is not a generic bot, but it is only meant for your application domain. In that case, select direct line. Okay, when your bot is pretty much specific to your application domain. Okay, in such cases, select a direct line, because it's a REST API for communicating directly with our bot and our app service. So what is a direct line? As the name itself tells, it's a line between your app service or your web application and your Azure bot service. Okay, so its main work is that whatever messages you enter in your web application, it will take those messages, sends to bot. Bot will process that. Okay, and then whatever messages bot send to your web application, it will take those messages, it will send those messages through direct line to your web application. So that's what the name says, direct line, basically an REST API based channel. Okay, which takes message from one point, sends to another point, and vice versa. Okay, so if it is a custom bot, if it is not being used in any of the existing applications like Teams, Skype, like that, then go with direct line. Okay, now this direct line is associated with the secrets. Okay, in order to use a direct line, you must provide a secret because it's a REST API. Okay, so you must provide that secret, then only it will read messages from its appropriate ends and exchanges between them, otherwise it won't work. Okay, so how to configure direct line and how to make use of it, there's a wonderful documentation given by Microsoft. Okay, and I would definitely recommend you people to go through that. It will help you a lot. Okay, and you can create wonderful bots than whatever I have created till now. Okay, that's great. So let's move on to the direct line. Okay, in the direct line, you click on channels. Okay, so after clicking on channels, you will get these two. Here I have selected web chat and direct line as channels. Now what you have to do is click on this direct line link. Basically, when you click on this direct line link, it will take you to this direct line page. Okay, in the direct line page, okay, click on the default site. Okay, app service extension keys are not direct line secrets. Many people confuse with that and they put these secrets into their configuration and bot won't work. No, don't use these keys. Click on the default site. Okay, when you click on default site, the side pop-up will show you secret keys. Okay, so basically click on this visible button and copy those secrets and save it somewhere in key vault or in any kind of managed user secrets if you are doing local development. Okay, so without this secrets, the direct line won't work. So do remember this. So once that is done, move on. Now from code side, I'm going to explain what code I have to put in my uh, web application startup.cs file. Basically, I'm working on a ASP.NET Core 3.1 web application. Okay, it's a ASP.NET Core web application. So two methods will be there: configure services and configure method. While configuring the services, now first and foremost important thing is I have to make a call, that is services.add HTTP client. Okay, I must add a service of HTTP client, then add controllers and then add Newtonsoft JSON in order to configure the serialization settings. Okay, now next thing comes is create the bot framework authentication to be used with the bot adapter. Okay, so bot framework authentication is basically a set of APIs which will does the operation or the functionality of bot framework authentication. Okay, do remember one thing: you are making use of Azure Bot service. Okay, and when it comes to the authentication to this Azure Bot service, there is a separate tenant associated with that. Basically, if you select a multi-tenant, okay, then it will authenticate the user on botframework.com tenant. Okay, but if you have make your bot as a single tenant, then it has to authenticate you against your organization tenant ID. Okay, your organization tenant ID. So in order to configure that properly, we have to add this service as a singleton, that is bot framework authentication configuration bot framework authentication class. Okay, now once this is done, configure bot framework adapter integration to work with Azure Bot. Okay, now in order for Azure Bot service to work, we have to add bot framework adapter integration services, otherwise the bot won't work. And it has been also seen that if you don't call add bot framework adapter integration method, okay, so in the startup, whenever you start the application, a dependency will fail basically, and which is related to the bot framework adapter integration related service was unable to resolve. Okay, so internally it makes use of this adapter integration services, and if you don't register this over here, then that dependency will fail and bot won't be up and running. It will fail basically. Okay, so mandatory, call this method services dot add bot framework adapter integration. And options, there are a lot of options available to configure, but in my case I'm just configuring the application credentials here. Okay, so options dot app credentials equal to new Microsoft app credentials. Now most important piece of information that you gathered while creating the Azure bot service was the Microsoft app ID and the Microsoft app password. Now you need to pass it over here. So I have it in my configuration. Basically, the Microsoft App ID is in app settings.json file, whereas the Microsoft App password is coming from Key Vault. And again, the organization tenant ID is coming from my app settings.json file. And here I need to pass the options.http client, because this HTTP client will does the further communication with my bot service. Okay. Now, in order to use this options.http client, first you have to register add HTTP client. Okay. So that's it. And then you can, yeah, then you need to add the iBot framework HTTP adapter implementation. Okay. So what this interface basically, it gives some methods. Okay. On turn async, on turn error, basically whenever communication is happening between the web application and bot, if some error occurred, how to handle that error, that you need to configure in your bot cloud adapter. There's a wonderful documentation given by Microsoft for this interface. Go through it. They have given samples also in their GitHub repository, and make use of that. Pretty simple implementation basically. Okay. Where you will configure on error, how will you handle it, and all other scenarios. Okay. That you can configure. Okay. And also you can supply the JSON serialization settings in order to handle the error messages. I think that part will be taken care by this iBot framework HTTP adapter implementation. Then the last step being services.add transient, the iBot implementation. Basically my bot that I have implemented, iBot is the contract given by Microsoft. So I have given implementation in terms of MBS bot. Okay. There is an error, ignore it, but this class implements this iBot and gives implementation for my bot functionality. Okay. So this is the mandatory step we need to follow in order for our bot to work properly. Okay. So one more important point I need to highlight here, the third parameter here. Okay. The first is Microsoft App ID, the second is Microsoft App Secret or password, third is your tenant ID. Now if your Azure bot service is of type single tenant, then you have to mandatorily pass your organization tenant ID. If you don't pass your organization tenant ID, then you will get 403 forbidden errors. You can these errors can be visible when you access your bot channels, basically your Azure bots bot channels. Okay. So you can see those errors on the bot, sorry, the direct line service. Okay. So remember this, if you are making use of a single tenant, which I am doing in my case, because this is the most commonly used configuration, because when an organization want their bot to work only with respect to their organization level, so you have to must pass the tenant ID of your organizations. Now, if your Azure bot service is multi-tenant in nature, which means multiple organizations can make use of that, in that case, simply pass here the botframework.com based URL. Okay, there's a default tenant basically, which is used by the Azure bot service to authenticate the user. Okay, it's botframework.com, it seems. That's what I have read in the documentation. Okay, that you need to pass here, or you need to pass the just one word called common. Okay. So these are the two possibilities here that you need to pass. Okay. So that is all about the tenant ID that we need to pass based on the type of Azure bot service. Okay. And then comes configure. Okay. In a configure method, very simple, you will basically call your middlewares over here. And most important middleware being, what you have to do is you have to make a call to use bot framework. Okay, don't forget to add this call. Okay, simply call this dot use bot framework so that it will make use of the bot framework APIs. Well, that said, I think this is the setup we need to do. And one error that I already explained, that is this one. Okay. In case of single tenant Azure bot service, if you don't pass your organization tenant ID, then your direct line channel will be having this kind of errors. There was an error sending this message to your bot, HTTP status code forbidden, because you used a wrong tenant ID there. So you have to pass your organization tenant ID in case of single tenancy Azure bot creation. If it is multi tenancy, no need to worry. Okay. it will even there is no need to add explicit call to options.app credentials also here. No need to set this app credentials property itself, because it will automatically take care of making authentication to botframework.com tenant. And if you have kept the secrets of Microsoft app sorry the your Azure bot services app ID and app secret with these names: Microsoft app ID, Microsoft app secret, app password, and there is one more thing, the Microsoft tenant type. Okay, sorry, the Microsoft app type, and then one more comes the Microsoft tenant type. Okay, these four settings if you introduce, then no need to make a call, sorry, no need to set these app credentials. The bot will automatically take care of the authentication. Only in case of single tenancy we have to do this. Okay, hope it's pretty much clear for you people. And yeah, that's it from yeah, how to create Azure bot service and configure in your code base. Okay, so it's mandatory that we have to upgrade to Azure bot service as early as possible, because now bot channel registrations are basically deprecated. Okay, so thank you for listening and have a nice day.